So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today is Thursday, February the 3rd, 2022. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1. And that puts you in the queue to talk to us, and we would love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael just a minute to get dialed in. And I'll direct you to our website as always. It's WHYAGAIN.org. You can click on the Start Here button in the upper left corner, or you can scroll down to the bullseye in the middle of the page. Both of those, when you click them, will take you to the same place. And that's where you'll find all of the worksheets. Somebody asked the other day where to find the commitments. And they're listed under the worksheet as well. So if you go to the worksheets, the first thing is going to be the PowerPoint presentation and Chapter 24, and then a link that'll take you to where all of the reality, stress management, wake-up sheets are. They're on a separate page because there's so many of them. MP3s of radio shows. There's information of how this matches parallels with the addiction programs, AA and such. Information on the app. And then it'll say learn what tools to use when. And for those who have no issues, it's got all of that. And then the other worksheets, and they are in alphabetical order. So if you go to C, commitments, there is all of the commitments. You click on that, and then there's the downloads for all of them. I do not have the most recent one done yet. We've had Aria for the last 2 days, and I had a niece and her family come in from Florida to visit Dad, and then working with Dad in the evenings, and I just haven't had computer time yet. So I do not have the newest one out on the website yet, but that's where you will find the commitments. And when I do get them done and up there, that's where the new ones will be. And so anyway, we hope that you can find all the tools that we use, that we have, that go along with all the DVDs. They're all on that page. All right. Welcome, Michael. I think I hear you talking through the wall, but can't hear you on the radio show.
Can see you through the wall, but not through the window, eh? Okay. Well, I'm back. Mute challenge, what can I say? So once again, welcome everybody. Delighted that you're here. As we move this conversation forward to the next level and the opportunities that come to look into our minds and look at the constructs there and where our world has trained us to be totally and completely irresponsible and really to tell ourselves this giant lie that with our eyes we're looking at something outside of us leaves us in a place where it's too easy to become a victim of the game and a victim of the world. So another aspect of this work is that of undoing the posture of victimhood and stepping into the role of one who consciously creates their lives. There's a workshop we do called On Creating Consciously, and it's all about how to become a conscious co-creator. You are going to create. You don't have any choice about that. It's just whether you're going to create out of hostility and fear or out of sweetness and beauty, out of the truth of who you are. I was listening to a presentation on some of the ancient philosophers, the Stoics, and at least one of them advised that, every day you imagine the very worst you can possibly think of, and then nothing can surprise you the rest of the day. And if only there was an understanding that we are creators and what we imagine, image in, what we bring in energetically to our fields is what our mind replicates and reproduces for us and what we tend to resonate or attract in our world, then that piece of advice would probably be changed. But according to the professor that was presenting it, this was one of the very top-level, brilliant pieces of advice to give someone. Imagine the worst things that can happen to you, and then nothing worse can happen in your day. Well, not exactly the route I would choose to take, but to each their own. And, one of the pieces of the puzzle that the Greeks did give us, and Stoicism comes out of Greek philosophy, was to guard the portals of the mind and realize that what we open our mind to is what we're going to get to live with. And, recognizing that the output of my mind is called perception. If you go to the Course in Miracles, it says that perception is a skill that was made up by me to take the place of what the Creator gave me in creation. So there's an actuality. There's, we've quoted the Harvard research that says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness in that time frame is 9 bits. So we oftentimes metaphorically, not meaning absolutely literally, refer to conscious awareness as the 9-bit mind. And in that time frame where 9 bits are visible, experienced consciously, something in the order of 9,991, the other 10,000 bits are unconscious. And it's been estimated in that same time frame, which is about a 25th of a second, we perhaps live in a 20 trillion bit world. And looking at 9 bits out of what perhaps is 20 trillion bits sounds pretty silly to say we know how it all works. And one of the things we're going to offer with this set of tools is that we may not know how it all works, but we've got the tools with which to work through whatever's working and to bring about shifts and changes in our minds and our perceptual constructs. So this skill is something that, and we don't realize, here we have this 20 trillion bit banquet in front of us, and we plop a 9-bit hostility or fear-based perceptual construct in front of it and say, there, now I know all about the world. And more false words than that were never spoken, because what that 9-bit mind always tells us first and foremost is about the mind that the 9 bits comes from. The mind that is generating the perception exposed by what that perceptual construct is. And when I'm in perception, I'm literally trapped in the past. And what the Course says about that world, it literally calls that a whole world, and it says that world will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. Now, what does it mean by cherished? So I have to sit around and go, oh, I love my rage, I really enjoy my fear. No. I can just say something like, well, I really want to heal, but this little bit of rage, just in case somebody comes along and I need it, I want to hang on to it. Well, now I've cherished my rage. I can say I want to be at peace and I want to get rid of my rage, but as long as I have a use for it, then I'm cherishing it and it's not going to be removed. It's not going to let go. So whatever that thought based in hostility or fear is that keeps the perceptual mind going, it's got to be forgiven. It's got to be removed. The thought might be it's the only way I can protect myself. It makes me strong enough to attack. There may be all kinds of crazy rationalizations, but if you're not at peace, you have a problem, and your hostility and fear are not going to serve the healing of that problem. What will serve the healing is forgiveness. And remember that forgiveness is not about the great trickery that says if I let you off the hook, I've engaged in forgiveness. Because when I let somebody else off the hook, I have not engaged in forgiveness at all. I've engaged in pardoning. Call it what it is. It's pardoning. When it comes to forgiveness, it's a totally internal action that's about collapsing, pulling the rug out from our perceptual constructs, freeing ourselves from those constructs, the wounds and the entanglements of the past. So it's about removing these energetic patterns from one's own structure. Now, our wounds, they're the assaults, they're often multi-generational, that store the pain that blocks the experience of ourselves as love. literally wipes out the capacity to experience ourselves as who we are, because this ongoing rolling hostility or fear keeps displacing that subtler energy. When they talked about the still small voice, they're saying that it is subtle energy that will guide you if you're willing to listen. But if you've got all kinds of emotional noise and unresolved trauma within your structure, you're not going to hear the guidance that's available. Carl Jung says, and it will become one of the most powerful parts of your world and of your life. Carl Jung says it this way: until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. So whatever the root of those thought patterns are, we only see the tip of the iceberg when those thoughts are active. We're being run from the unconscious level, literally directing our lives. I'd love to have a conversation and done a worksheet with Seneca, who's the Stoic, who said, think of the worst things you could imagine happening, then nothing worse will happen in your day, and you'll be a happy person. Boy, I'd love to have introduced him to worksheets and to forgiveness. So the removal or forgiveness of assault energy creates an opening that facilitates the flow of light and love into every instant of our lives, into every cell in our structures. And in fact, when I choose that state of being, that state of love, it tends to wake up that same energy. It tends to resonate that same energy in others. The errant thoughts I made up, along with the thought disorders that I've learned or inherited from my culture, from my past generations, can be removed. And forgiveness is liberation from that image-making capability of my mind and the disorders that underlie its function. Now, if you're new to this work, I would say, in the research I've done in the last 50 years, if you're new to this work, I would say the chances of you having been exposed to anything to do with forgiveness are probably at least 1,000,000 to 1. So be prepared to learn an entirely new skill. And if you try to argue with it from your past because it's not logical, then you're just going to blow yourself out of the water in the possibility of using it. On the other hand, it doesn't mean you have to go, oh, that's the way it is. Okay, I accept it. There's nothing here to be believed. To believe a word, just try it out and see what happens. So it's going to take learning an entirely new skill, because first century Aramaic forgiveness does not look anything like what you've learned from this world of perception. And it's interesting, in the Course in Miracles, they categorize the world of perception as the world of darkness. So don't expect the world of darkness to have taught you anything about forgiveness. And everything you think you know about it, oh, I let them off the hook, I'm going to forgive them, is all a fraud. So we're going to invite you to drop that fraud and make the space for something new. So literally, we have this world of perception, and if you go to our YouTube channel, there's a video there entitled, What is the World? It's a lesson from the Course in Miracles. And we talk about the lowercase w world, the world of perception, the constructs of our minds, and the uppercase w world, the world that is actual, the actuality. And what forgiveness does is it collapses the perceptual constructs that we tend to lay over the actuality that blocks our ability to experience what's actually true. Perceptual world appears to be outside of us because, of course, with our eyes, we see it out there, right? And guess what? We've been tricked again. You've never seen anything with your body's eyes. It's not possible. Now, notice that virtually everybody believes they open their eyes and they see what's out there. And that's one of the biggest frauds, another of the biggest frauds that's ever existed on the planet. Seeing does not happen in the eyes. Seeing happens in the mind. And with it, we've been fooled into giving it, as the Course says, all the meaning that it has for me. Perception is a construct of the human mind. So this skill called perception is an image-making capability with which the mind constructs a world to match what has been trained through generations as familiar and seems desirable and true. Now, the only feature actually demanded by this skill is that it's familiar. It doesn't have to be anything true about it. As long as it feels familiar, it fits with the good old family feeling. So when something fits the family pattern, it keeps us in the role to which we've been accustomed and that we've been assigned in the family system or in the cultural system. That role may be painful, just degrading. But if we've accepted it, it's our role. And even though it's a total fraud, having been convinced it's who we are, if we accept this false identity as true, then we tend to think that that's who we are. And the idea here is to free yourself from that. Whatever your mind, remember the thought from the Course, I've given this all the meaning that it has for me. And these thought disorders tend to be generational. So each stimuli in the world, each event, resonates content from the mind, and according to what's resonated within any given mind, that mind constructs the world that you think you see out there. The world of perception, which is substituted for the actuality, the world the Creator actually created. So what ends up happening is most people live in a world of their own making, a construct in their own mind, thinking that it is outside of them and that they have no power over it, thinking it's beyond their control, when in fact, when one understands its source, it is totally collapsible and can be removed. The genius work of Yeshua is the forgiveness work, the removal process. And until the Greeks got a hold of it and made the world of internally generated perception real, taught us to blame somebody else for it. You made me mad. You made me sad. You made me afraid. And then, of course, the frosting is put on the cake, and we're told that we resolve the problem by forgiving them. And put forgiving in big quotes there, because this letting somebody else off the hook has nothing to do with forgiveness. So why would I let somebody else off the hook? Because my mind is in any given reality. The words "I forgive you" are words of sheer and total insanity. And this world of silliness, it really is silly when you get down to it, is called ego. And the ego is a state where the perceptual mind reflects what is usually early errant thoughts that need to be undone. So in childhood, we're taught errant thoughts. In the words of Carl Jung, he says it this way: the little world of childhood, with its familiar surroundings, is a model for the greater world. The more intensively the family has stamped its character upon the child, the more it will tend to feel and see its earlier miniature world again in the bigger world of adult life. Now, I'm working on doing some writing, and so some of this will be a repeat, but it's juxtaposition differently with different materials, so should open up new perceptual capabilities and more profound abilities to be able to question your perception and collapse what isn't true. So earlier miniature world just replicates for most people in adult life. And Jung goes on to say, naturally, this is not a conscious intellectual process. Our offering is that this world of ego, the non-being self, must be dissolved, and that's the aim of forgiveness. Letting other people off the hook because there's something untoward going on inside of you has nothing to do with forgiveness. It's not what it's about. Forgiveness is about removal. So internally generated perceptions become complete with color, sound, emotions, a whole literal world, which we then substitute for life and the actual experiences being presented by life. Now, the question becomes, why would anyone tolerate such a fraud? It's because it's made of our familiar patterns. Family, look at that word familiar, family patterns. And of course, if I made it up, it must be true and it must be perfect. And with these beliefs, the whole technique of substitution becomes acceptable. We habitually replace the actual world, the one that the Creator created, that world that is actually based in love, with this construct in the mind. And fewer are aware, and even fewer will admit it. Everybody lives in that world of perceptual constructs. And our perceptual constructs are of our own making. There's a good parable, a metaphor for forgiveness, and just a little story. It just takes a couple of lines. An awestruck admirer looked at Michelangelo's finished statue of David and exclaimed, "How?" Michelangelo replied, "David was always there in the marble. I just took away everything that was not him." Now, forgiveness, as is taught in the Course in Miracles, parallels first century Aramaic forgiveness. It takes away ego, everything that is not you. It's a quantum leap different and beyond anything ever presented about forgiveness in English, Latin, Greek, or Hebrew. There are no words to describe the actual process of forgiveness. You have to go all the way back to the Aramaic to find it. We've had this idea of pardoning substituted. You know, we did a Spanish class recently where Nene helped us. And it's interesting to look at the fact that in the Spanish language, the word forgive is pardon. Letting somebody else off the hook rather than removing the root of content in your mind that doesn't belong there. Forgiveness process, forgiveness is talked of in the context of theology, of churchianity. But it is absolutely the most profound psychological, physiological, energetic, and genetic truth ever presented. So, in forgiveness are the keys to the undoing, the dissolution of this ego self, which accelerates as we stay connected to conscious, active, present love. So that's what we're here to understand and to carry out. And we're delighted that you're here to be part of it. And so, Miss Jeanie, we're at about the 25-minute mark. Do we have anybody out there in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
Oh, yeah, we have 34 minutes left, and there are no hands up. So come on, press 1. You're first in line.
So if you're out there with a thought or a question, if we can support you, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, our call-in number, most people just call in and listen on their phones, is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show, and then if you push 1, that'll raise a hand in the control panel, and Jeanie will introduce you. So any particular situation, any particular stimuli resonates brain cells, content from the mind. If I say don't think about the color of your car, what comes to mind but the color of your car? So each event, pardon me, according to what's resonated within any particular mind, the mind constructs that world that we think we see and we think it's out there. The world of perception, again, is substitute for the actuality. And most end up living in that world of their own making.
We have a hand up.
Oh, great. Well, let's say hello to our caller.
It's 541. I believe it's Julie.
Well, welcome, young lady. How are you? Hello, Julie. Are you mute challenged? We're not hearing your voice.
She had sent me a text that she couldn't get in queue, and so I told her I'd turn her on, but then she said that she would call in again, so let me refresh the board. Julie, if you're still on there, I've turned on your microphone. Oh, her hand's up. Hold on. There you go.
We found you. Hey, young lady.
Hi. Well, I just broke up with my boyfriend.
Thank you once again. I just want to publicly thank you again for connecting us with a woman who's got the show out in where is she, in Utah? Looking forward to working with her. That's cool, and we'll keep everybody posted when that starts to happen.
Yeah, it's a great show if anybody wants to start listening to her podcast or anything. She interviews a lot of really good people that are in harmony with the work, you know. So, speaking of harmony, I just am letting go of my boyfriend who is not a harmonious element in my life. And I just have, you know, I've had him, and I know I have to be responsible for everything that's coming up in me. So I'm just saying a lot's coming up.
Well, we'll hold the space for, you know, that's a big decision to make. I know that it was something you worked hard to put together and make work, and there are times, and of course it's everybody's his own choice. There are times when it's time to say, you know, this really isn't serving my purpose and working for you or for me, and to gently let it go, and of course continue to do your work so you don't have to turn around and create it with someone else. I mean, you can create something different.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah. So, yeah. So continue doing my work. So I have to do a worksheet or something to that find about 20 or 30 things. But yeah, it's just I'm just reporting, I guess. Are we having a session this coming Saturday? I think
it's the following Saturday. It's the second Saturday of each month.
Oh, okay. Right. The 12th then. Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that'll be good. I'll be in good shape for that.
We'll be on it. You'll be ready. And when you say do a worksheet, there may be, you know, on any particular aspect of, especially with something as big as letting go of a relationship that you held high hopes for. There may be many topics where there'll be many worksheets to be done, many shades of healing to take place. And to say again?
Holding high hopes for. There's my goal. Yeah.
Next layer of clarity.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a good place to start. I think I'm going to do something like a mood shifter or something like that. Anyway, I don't know if anybody else is maybe wanting with a hand up or anything. So I don't want to just take this time up with my personal stuff, but just letting it be known that that's what's going on.
Well, we're here to support you. We're here to support you with your personal stuff, and you're the focus of the show at this moment. Any questions or thoughts or support needed, that's what we're here for. And you deserve to have as much time as you need in order to move through what you're moving through, if you're ready and willing to be supported. So I'd invite you to, any questions you have, any arena where there's support needed, let's go for it. And who knows, as you do that, what you're going to open for someone else who doesn't even have the brain cells to do what you're doing. So,
well, I have a lot of raw feelings that I've just held back for so long, but the crowning blow was Friday night when we've been arguing for every 2 weeks about stupid stuff, but it still comes up, and it's just showing the differences between us, and so I give up. There's differences, and he was really, really, he often gets very rageful with language and swearing and things like "God damn it," and and I love God, and I just, that language really cuts, and want to be around it, and so in fact this time accidentally he recorded it on a phone message. His phone accidentally called me, and my voicemail recorded him swearing for about 4 minutes of the argument. I couldn't hear my own words, but heard his, and it's just a reminder, and I think Spirit just gave me a nice little sample to listen to every once in a while because it's toxic, and I navigate through it because I have the tools and enough love in my heart, but it still isn't worth. It's not worth my expenditure.
Breathe.
It's not appreciated, and there's no change. Yeah. I'm trying to solve it with the same thinking that got me into it, and I need to think differently.
Well, notice that earlier what you talked about were your emotions.
Yeah.
And remember that emotions are not directly changed. Emotions are reflections of thoughts. And toxic emotions are the result of toxic thoughts.
Yes.
The toxic thoughts that are being resonated by being treated this way, perhaps by having put yourself in that position, are what you really want to allow yourself to be conscious of and work through. I would suggest a mind shifter.
Right. Let me
you got a pen handy?
I'm getting some paper. So we're talking about my toxic thoughts.
Your toxic thoughts, exactly. His toxic thoughts aren't going to impact you, except to where you're in resonance with them.
Yeah, but he insists on us having these discussions that are toxic, and I just crumble. I just can't stand up to. I don't have facts. I can't debate. I don't want to even engage in it. So my toxic thoughts within the context of arguing, just like my parents' energies, I guess.
So notice you're back in interaction with your power person.
Yeah.
And here's another opportunity for you to forgive us to what was implanted in those toxic situations.
I don't even know what to say was implanted. I guess I guess it'll come as I do the work. Yeah.
So here's a mind shifter to assist.
Okay, thank you.
I deserve to be treated and spoken to
Yes. Okay.
as a cherished equal.
Yeah.
By anyone
Mm-hmm.
who I am in relationship with. So what does that resonate for you? What happens when you think that thought?
Well, I'm having to see and accept that I haven't been very cherished for a while here in this one, and that I must carry these energies forward unconsciously, creating a situation where I could allow someone to not cherish me.
So if you look back to your relationship with your power person, were you cherished? Were you treated lovingly, gently, and with respect?
Well, I accepted how I was treated as that, yes, but I guess I wasn't. I don't know. I guess in a way I feel like what's coming up now, I just feel so hated by this person. So I may have picked up on energies of my father or my mother hating that they were in their situation and stuck with children to bring up. I don't know. Wanting to run away. I always want to run away because, and when they would argue, you know, one of them would throw dishes on the floor and drive out of the driveway, screeching the tires, come back calmer, you know. I've been mimicking that behavior in the way I do it. You know, I don't get quite so dramatic, but I've been mimicking that.
So when we have unresolved thought disorders in our minds, we will tend to be drawn to circumstances and situations, and will tend to do behaviors that will replicate those dynamics. And that becomes a strong draw. And I think that it comes from the unconscious desire to work through those things. So we set ourselves up. But then once we find ourselves in a situation that even comes close to mimicking that, am I going to do something different than what I did originally? That's where the change has to take place. Rather than, oh, well, I just kowtow and let it happen, I speak up lovingly, gently, respectfully. I do my own work, and I clean up my own mind. And what tends to happen as I clean up my mind is I will tend to draw different behavior out of the people around me.
So I don't try to fix it by speaking up to the other person about, let's resolve these things. I have to clean it from within my own mind.
Well, you want to clean up from within your mind, but what I would suggest you do is you go back to the email that Jeanie sent you when you were in the, or after we completed the Codependence to Interdependence Communication Practicum Intensive, and I'd suggest you go back and you do go through all the videos and all the work we did with responsibility communication.
Yeah.
And that is where you speak out of a connected space of love, you own your issues, you ask for support in healing your issues, and you refuse to play the game.
Okay, I that was always the hardest part of that intensive for me. I do feel like incapable of doing that. I don't remember. I haven't practiced it enough. I don't remember how to do it.
So that's why I'm suggesting you go back. That's why you've got videos for continued self-study to go back and develop the brain cells for doing it differently. You know, these are things we should have been taught in childhood, but most of us were taught the opposite. And so one of the challenges to learning these new skills, behaviors, and ways of acting is the making room for a new possibility to come in. rather than being hooked in the old generational patterns, it just seems so normal that, of course, that's what everybody does, because it's not what everybody does, and it's not normal.
Yeah.
So what I acknowledge you for right now is that instead of just doing the pattern over and over and over again, you're waking up, you're asking for support, and you're doing your work. You know, you're developing the brain cells for doing something different. Could you imagine your mom, after one of those events happening with your dad, picking up and calling into the radio show and having this conversation?
Well, I actually think she would have if it had been available.
If she'd had the tools?
I've read some notes in her diary where she's looking back on, boy, if I had only known this back then, you know.
Right. I hear you.
Yeah, but so I think she, in her own way, was probably trying, but didn't really have the tools to get through it. And okay, so here's a belief. So I believe that if my mom couldn't do it, I might not be able to either, which I know is not true, but I've been trying to see her as a model for showing me how to do it, which means I'm relying on my power person instead of me being empowered to find a new way that she may have never found.
Right. Right. So if you imagine someone who wanted to fly before the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk flew their first plane, was it even a possibility for them?
No, it was just an imagining.
Not even possible. And
a hope or
life without tools.
Mm-hmm.
So a hope and a conviction, but no possibility. Flight had not been invented. There were no airplanes to jump on.
True.
And so if you go back to your mother and father engaging the way they engaged, you know, I don't know, maybe the closest mind that might have had an inkling that this kind of healing was possible was maybe 1,000 miles away. And so not even conceivable, even though she was looking. You conceived of, and you stepped up, and despite a lot of resistance and a lot of strife and a lot of conflict in yourself, you've kept putting one foot in front of the other, and here you are having this conversation. I think that's pretty amazing and pretty powerful. And you've got the tools. So I'd give you an assignment, and that would be to sit down and start with the first communication practicum video in the intensive, watch them all through at least once, and start building the brain cells on another level. I mean, you're going to hear things there that you'll go, oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah, didn't remember. Oh, yeah, there it is. And what you're doing is building brain cells. And, you know, an important part of building the brain cells for doing something new is breaking down the brain cells that say it's not possible, it's not conceivable, it can never happen, and I could never do that. So that's half of the task, is undoing that to make room for the possibility of doing it differently. So I would support you really getting committed and getting those videos out and hitting the links and watching them. Stay with them. Have your notebook from the first time you went through the intensive and go through every thought wherever something is added and start building the brain cells for another level of true responsibility communication and responsibility for forgiveness of whatever the dynamics are in your own mind.
It seems like so
Good
much
breath.
homework. I know, but it seems like homework.
Yeah. So, Julie, you're answering for yourself literally the question of the ages that all of the philosophers for thousands of years, millions of people have been looking and looking and looking. And they've followed the rule of the ego, which says, seek, but do not find.
Yeah.
You have been seeking, you have found, and now you're going to do more of the undoing process that says it's not possible as you build the brain cells for living in a whole different way. And that's what it takes. You know, you've heard me use that in that example of, the 700-ton warship floating through, the Pacific Ocean at full speed, doing 70 knots an hour, and the captain says, turn this thing around. That thing isn't turned around 10 minutes or 10 hours later, probably. I don't know how long it takes. Hours to take something with that much inertia, turn it around to go the other way. And you're doing that, the first generation doing it.
Okay, so I was writing down some notes, and I realized that I have a goal to not find.
That's pretty typical.
Yeah, and so and then the new goal is to undo the do not find brain cells that are in there, imposing their power over me.
Yeah. Remember the introduction that I did. Go ahead, say it again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm allowing those brain cells to overpower me. When I change my mind, everything goes differently. True.
So do some forgiveness with those issues. But go back and give a listen to the show once again in the part where I talked about how these thought disorders that are familiar, which the root of the word familiar is family, and seem real and true. There doesn't have to be anything real and true about them. They just have to be familiar. And if the familiar is, if what the family system handed and the cultural system handed is, well, I deserve this and things are never going to get any better and it could never change for me, then those thought disorders are what need to be confronted and forgiven. And when they come up, one of the keys is to take responsibility for them rather than just puking them on somebody else, which is what most people do. To really stop, when your mind wants to lash out or, be vicious or condescending or whatever to someone else, to stop and take responsibility. Oh, this is a thought disorder. How did it feel when my power person berated me like this? Like I want to berate this person in front of me. And stop, even though it may feel good to do it, because it feels like power. When one watched a power person having power over themselves in the unconscious, the memory of that, it's like, this is how I'll feel powerful. So I'll take this person that I say, I cherish you deeply, and I'll puke all over them and go, yeah, that feels good. That feels like power. And it's just replicating power person dynamics. No, I'm going to stop. I'm going to take responsibility and say to myself, no, I don't want to take vengeance on this person. I don't want to degrade this person. I don't want to drive this person to the ground like my power person did me. I want to uplift them. I want to cherish them. I want to support them. I want to do those same things for myself and change the dynamic of that inertia-bound mind that just wants to puke the same way the power person did.
Mm.
And where there are thought disorders about the partner that you're separating from, to be vigilant about those, be conscious of those parts of you that may have this little thing of, well, I want to take vengeance or, and stop and focus on, that's the place to speak the commitment. Maybe you've decided that, direct communication is not appropriate anymore, but you can sit down and write a letter that maybe you'll burn that says, I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth, to be true to you and treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect in my thoughts, my words, and my actions, whether in your presence, and reinforce in your own mind that that's how you want to behave. That commitment is for you, shifting your mind. And then, as you make a space for a true relationship to come in, instead of following the old pattern, you'll have those new brain cells that go, oh, yeah, there's a part of me that wants to do what my power person did to me and degrade this person, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to forgive that inclination in me. I'm going to change my inertia, and I'm going to offer this person something sweet and caring and nurturing and cherishing and loving rather than think, I'm the one with the power because I can, scrape your nose. Good breath. That's the kind that heals.
I don't see that I'm the one dishing that out to him. He is.
I didn't suggest you were.
Well, because he's
I'm
the
just
one
saying
if from his past that are but he's reflecting to me that he doesn't feel respected by me, and that's
right.
his big complaint, or that I'm the one being condescending, or I'm the one that's insulting him or something, but he really has brain cells for the insult and disrespect. So, I mean, I can't change that.
So we're
listening to any of that.
Right. You can only change yours. But if you go back to your relationship with your power person, was your power person ever condescending and disrespectful to you?
Probably. I think so. Yeah. Like, why aren't you doing it right and doing it better? And I don't know that I got told that, but that's the energy. I can recognize the energy.
It seems to me I can remember times when you processed being so degraded that you were locked in a closet. Am I remembering that correctly?
I was punished by having to go to my room, and then I was defending myself, and so it turned into a whole day in my room. And then 2 days, and then 3 days, and up to 4 days. And so now I have all these patterns of what I did with my creative energy for 4 days. I'm in prison. That's what happened.
So then what I'd invite you to look at is, were there times when with maybe just a breath or a look or a single word, you were able to replicate your power person's behavior of punishment and not respecting? That maybe that came out of you even though you weren't aware of it, that it was there? And if it did, and it's quite likely, and in a tit-for-tat kind of interaction it was there, then instead of delighting in it like it sounds like perhaps your power person did, that's where you stop and you go, I refuse to do this, and I'm going to heal this in me. If there's any of that there, which if your power person did it to you, the chances of it being there are pretty good.
Well, okay, this is close to what happens with my 4-day pattern of retreating and isolating, being isolated as a punishment.
Sent to your room?
Sent to my room, and then when I'm feeling the stress is up and the chips are down with my partner because I can't, I'm resonating incapability of handling the conversation because it's not in my subject matter or brain cells, and
right.
And so I want to retreat. I say I need time to myself because I'm trying to save myself basically and recover and how carve out my life and who I am instead of always having it attacked and dissolved by this power person transference I'm allowing to happen.
Right. And chances are, if that's the energy that was moving in you, then it was perhaps there were verbal or physical cues that were being given that resonated to him being abandoned, which he considered to be disrespected. And, cleaning up those kinds of dynamics, it's a major piece of work to do.
I know. Well, I'm on my own now, that's for sure. I've removed myself, and I doubt he's going to cover any ground to making it work or trying to make changes. So
Right.
it's all up to me, and I just don't have to do it for me, period. It's not about him at this point. It's all about me.
It's about you. It's for you.
Preparing my
Exactly.
energies and having the life I'm meant to be and live.
Right.
So I'm escaping.
So you've got
from
our
a
support
bad
for going there.
situation. I'm escaping from a bad situation that I created by letting those energies create for me and not really taking responsibility to move out of it, or to move my mind out of, to clear my mind. I have to clear my mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it sounded like you made yourself quite available to be abused. And that's why I suggested the mind shift that I suggested, because you deserve something different than that. And so being aware of that in the future, you'll know that the only energy that you deserve is to be treated lovingly, gently, and with respect. And if something less than that comes up, what am I going to do? Oh, I'll hold this in my heart and listen. As we each learn to speak, experience, and be responsible for our own realities. I'm here for and with you, keeping communication open and keeping love conscious, active, and present as we heal, celebrate life, and grow together.
So I'm going to do this in my own relationship here by myself?
In your own relationship, totally, completely, unilaterally, with you, in the mirror.
But I'm saying that to him.
And
okay, I'm saying
if you're saying it to you, but also if you're moving into thought disorders that you want to point toward him, even though you may never talk to him again, you still want to do that with him.
Okay, so I'll do it energetically.
Exactly. Put your energetic devotion to living that commitment, whether in his presence or not.
Okay. And mainly I'm doing this for myself, because I can't just go back just because I feel better or he feels better, because it'll come up again if I don't do my work.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And as you do that, you'll be cleaning up your generations.
Yeah.
You know, go back and listen to that segment of the intensive where Magda did that piece of work with her grandfather. That's so profoundly powerful. Do you have a link to that?
Yeah, I do. I remember it. Real quickly, thank you. You know, I woke up one morning and I had these words teaching to me from wherever it was, and saying to be trusted and trustworthy, you know, is really deep. That was a matter needed to.
Sounds like direct guidance from Ruka.
And so, yeah. Anyway, that was just in this last week. I guess I'm trusting something right now, big time.
Well, you might go back to the course and read the section on the development of trust. It's powerful.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it lays out several stages. You know, it's kind of like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a psychiatrist that worked with the stages of grief. Well, the course lays out the stages of developing trust and the things you'll go through, and it's pretty profound, pretty powerful. So I suggest you might want to read that, and we're down to the last minute or so, so I'm going to have to close the conversation out, but if it's appropriate and things are still moving tomorrow, let's continue the conversation, and let's take it to the next level.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, young lady, we're holding the space. Nice to hear you be able to smile and laugh in the middle of it all. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us, lending us your ears. Pass the energy and the information on. If this show's been meaningful to you, go to our archives, grab a copy. If there's somebody that you think might be ready to hear it, pass it on. In the meantime, create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings.